Close your eyes. Now imagine you're about to be born, not in a hospital, and not in a warm house, but under a rocky cliff, while rain pours outside. There are no doctors here, no medicine, no electricity, only a small fire, and a few people praying that you and your mother survive the night. If you were born 50,000 years ago, your first birthday was never guaranteed. Simply surviving childhood was one of the greatest achievements that a human could accomplish. But here's the surprising part. Despite the danger, prehistoric children still laughed, played, and learned. So what was it really like to grow up before schools, before toys, before civilization itself? Let's go back 50,000 years. The moment you're born, everyone around you stops what they're doing. Not because babies were rare, but because every newborn was the future of the entire group. Hunter-gatherers usually lived in small bands of 30 to 100 people. Every skilled hunter, every gatherer, every storyteller had once been a tiny baby, youths like you. Your birth wasn't only your parents' concern, it belonged to everyone. Anthropologists call this cooperative parenting. Grandparents, older siblings, aunts, uncles, even unrelated adults often helped raise young children. It took an entire community to raise the next generation, because losing a child wasn't rare. Disease, cold, and simple accidents made survival brutally hard. But if you made it through those fragile first years, you became one of the group's greatest treasures. Forget cribs, forget nurseries, forget having your own room. You slept beside your mother, wrapped in animal hides. The fire crackled while strange sounds echoed through the darkness. Lions, hyenas, wolves, leopards. At night, the world belonged to predators. The fire wasn't only for warmth. It was protection. Even as a small child, you learned one rule fast. Never wander from the fire after dark. Because, out there, nature never cared how old you were. Now imagine you're 4 years old. No television, no cartoons, no plastic toys. Only your toys came from nature itself. Sticks became spears. Stones became animals. Mud became food. Archaeologists have even found tiny stone tools and miniature wooden spears at ancient sites. Many researchers believe these weren't real weapons at all. They were practice tools made just for children, because play was never only entertainment. It was training. Hide and seek taught stealth. Throwing sticks improved aim. Climbing trees built strength and balance. Even pretend hunting may have taught teamwork, long before a child was ready for a real hunt, without even realizing it. Every child was attending the oldest school in human history, Nature itself. No one ever said, "Class starts at 9." There were no teachers standing at the front of a room. Instead, children learned simply by watching every single day. They watched tools being sharpened, fires being built, and animal tracks being read. Psychologists call this observational learning, and humans happen to be remarkably good at it. Children didn't memorize facts from a textbook. They copied real people solving real problems. Mistakes weren't marked in red ink. Sometimes a mistake simply meant going hungry, which meant children learned fast. Here's something fascinating. Human children stay dependent far longer than almost any other animal on Earth. A baby deer can walk within hours. A chimpanzee grows up much faster than we do. Humans spend years just learning. And at first, that seems like a weakness. But evolution turned it into our greatest strength. That long childhood gave humans something precious: time. Time to observe, to experiment, to imitate. Some scientists believe this is one of the biggest reasons our species spread across every continent, because instead of relying only on instinct, we learned to rely on learning itself. Now imagine you're about 7 years old. One day, one of the elders puts a real tool in your hands. Maybe a stone knife, a digging stick, or a small spear. It isn't a toy anymore. It's your first real responsibility. There's no speech, no ceremony. You simply begin helping. Because in the Stone Age, there was no sharp line between being a child and being useful. Even young children gathered berries, collected firewood, carried water, and watched over younger siblings. None of these jobs were glamorous, but together, they helped keep the whole group alive. And here's the surprising part. No one forced them into it. They learned simply by copying everyone around them. Today, a mistake might cost you a bad grade. 50,000 years ago, it could cost far more. Pick the wrong mushroom, and someone could get sick. Walk too loudly while tracking an animal, and the entire hunt could fail. That sounds terrifying, but adults never expected children to be perfect. Instead, they let them practice, again and again. Anthropologists studying hunter-gatherers today noticed something surprising. Adults interfere surprisingly little. Children experiment. They observe, they fail safely, and then they try again. Some researchers even believe these children had more independence than many children have today. Now imagine following an experienced hunter through the wilderness. He suddenly kneels down and points silently at the ground. You see nothing, just dirt. But to him, it's a story, a broken branch, a fresh footprint, a few disturbed leaves. From these tiny clues, he already knows an animal passed by just minutes ago. Slowly, your own eyes begin noticing the same details. The forest was never random. It was full of information, and every sound could mean food or danger. Your closest friends slept beside the very same fire every single night. You explored together, climbed together, learned together. And one day, you would even hunt together. Trust mattered deeply. Because one day, that friend might save your life. As the sun went down, the work slowed, and the fire grew brighter. This may have been a child's favorite part of the entire day. Story time. Some stories warned of dangerous animals. Others preserved the memory of ancestors long gone. Before books existed, stories were libraries. And a child by the fire wasn't just being entertained. They were being educated. Now you're about 12 years old. For the first time, the hunters ask you to come along. Your heart races. This isn't a game anymore. The spear in your hand has a real, sharp stone point. The hunters barely speak. They use hand signals instead. A raised fist means stop. A pointed finger means look. You quickly learn something surprising. Hunting was never about strength. It was about patience. Hours pass. Your legs ache, but no one complains. Then the herd finally appears, and everything happens at once. Running, shouting, flying spears, dust filling the air. Whether the hunt succeeds or fails, you've already crossed an invisible line. For the very first time, the group trusted you with their survival. Modern children are often protected from death. 50,000 years ago, it was impossible to ignore. A grandparent who simply didn't wake up. A hunter who never returned home. Archaeologists have discovered ancient burials with flowers, tools, and carefully positioned bodies. Our ancestors never just abandoned their dead. They mourned them. They remembered them. Even children witnessed these moments and learned something very early. Life was precious because it was fragile. Imagine waking to a strange growl outside camp. Everyone falls silent. The fire burns brighter. Courage never meant feeling no fear at all. It meant knowing exactly what to do. Despite being afraid, children learn this by watching the adults stay calm. No panic, no screaming, everyone with a clear role. There was no birthday when you suddenly became an adult. Respect had to be earned. The first animal you tracked, alone. The first shelter you helped build. The first time younger kids started copying you instead of someone else. Little by little, you stopped being the kid. You became someone others could actually depend on. By 13 or 14, many prehistoric teenagers already knew things most modern adults never learn. They could identify hundreds of plants, track animals from a single footprint, predict weather just by reading the sky. No Google, no books, no GPS. Everything lived only inside human memory, and somehow it survived generation after generation. Ironically, many scientists believe these children had more freedom than kids in many modern cities today. No school bell, no packed schedule, just long hours of climbing, running, and inventing games, with almost no supervision. Some psychologists even argue that this freedom helped shape the human mind itself. But there was one thing every child needed, more than strength, more than speed, more than intelligence: belonging. A child alone rarely survived. A child surrounded by caring adults had a real chance. Our greatest survival tool was never the spear, or even the fire. It was each other. Now imagine you're about 15 years old. No one announces, "Congratulations! You're an adult now." There's no ceremony, no certificate. One day, people simply start treating you differently. You help organize hunts. You gather food, not just for yourself, but for others. You protect the younger children. Your place in the group is no longer decided by your age. It's decided by what you can actually do. Relationships naturally became part of life too, and some groups may have encouraged marrying outside their own community. But one thing always stayed true: no one survived alone for very long. Now compare that world to ours. Modern childhood has schools, hospitals, comfortable homes, and technology our ancestors couldn't even imagine. But it also has constant schedules, notifications, exams, and hours spent indoors. Prehistoric children faced dangers we barely think about today, but they also spent nearly every waking hour outdoors. Their lives were physically harder, yet often far more connected to the natural world. Neither childhood was perfect, just difficult in very different ways. So were prehistoric children actually happier? Honestly, we don't know. Happiness simply doesn't fossilize. You can't dig it out of the ground like a stone tool. But anthropologists studying hunter-gatherer communities today have noticed something fascinating. Children play freely. Adults stay physically close. Different generations mix together throughout the entire day. At the same time, life expectancy was low. Infections could turn deadly, and losing loved ones was tragically common. So prehistoric childhood wasn't paradise, and it wasn't constant suffering either. Like every era in human history, it was a mixture of joy, fear, curiosity, and loss. Maybe the most incredible thing about prehistoric childhood wasn't the danger. It was how much they learned in just a few years. Without books, without schools, without the internet. Children mastered skills that let our species spread across deserts, mountains, and frozen to every city, every invention, every spacecraft can be traced back to curious children around ancient campfires asking questions. Think about this. You still smile before you can speak. You still learn by copying others. You still love a good story. These aren't modern habits. They're ancient, a survival strategy refined over hundreds of thousands of years. The world has changed completely, but the human brain hasn't changed nearly as much. So, what was childhood really like 50,000 years ago? Harder, more dangerous, far less comfortable, but also, somehow, full of wonder. Children learned from rivers instead of textbooks, from animal tracks instead of apps, from grandparents instead of search engines. And maybe that's the biggest lesson of all. Childhood was never about having the most toys or the newest technology. It was always about learning how to become human. If this journey into the past fascinated you, hit like and subscribe for more science-backed stories from human history. And here's a question for you. Do you think modern children truly have it easier? Or have we lost something important along the way? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next journey through our past.